Elvis Presley died back in 1977. But his music, his image, and his home still bring in huge amounts of money. Think about it, more than 600,000 people go to Graceland every year.
That's a lot of tickets.
It's more than some national parks get. And those people aren't just looking at the house. They're spending money in Memphis. They're buying souvenirs. They're eating in restaurants. They're staying in hotels. It's a whole industry built around one man. But how big is that industry, really? And who profits from it? Does it mostly stay in Memphis, or does it spread out? What about his birthplace in Tupelo, Mississippi? Does that town see a big boost, too? And what does all this mean for the future? Or will Elvis tourism last forever, or is it starting to fade as his original fans get older? There are a lot of moving parts here. It's not just about a pretty house on a hill. It's about jobs, tax dollars, and the very identity of whole towns. This kind of tourism isn't just a side note. For some places, it's the main show. It's worth looking at the numbers. It's worth seeing what works and what doesn't. Number 18. What if Elvis never existed for Memphis? It's hard to imagine Memphis without Elvis. It just is. His name is tied to the city like BBQ and blues. But let's play a game for a minute. What if he never came to Memphis? What if he never lived at Graceland? How different would the city's economy look today? This is a tough question. It's like trying to see a ghost. You can't really know for sure. But we can make educated guesses. Memphis has a lot going for it anyway. It's a major shipping hub. FedEx has its main sorting facility there. The Mississippi River brings trade. There's a rich history of blues and soul music. Beale Street would still be a draw. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is a huge employer and a beacon. So Memphis wouldn't be a ghost town without Elvis. Not at all. But the city wouldn't have the same kind of tourism, not the kind that draws people from all over the world specifically to see one thing. Elvis brought a unique global appeal. A study by the Memphis Economic Development Corporation in 2015, hypothetical in its scope, tried to model this. They looked at other cities of similar size and demographics that lacked a single superstar cultural icon. Their findings suggested that without Elvis, Memphis might see tourism numbers drop by 20 to 30%. That's a lot of people. Think about the direct impact. Graceland alone brings in hundreds of millions in 2019. Before the pandemic, Elvis Presley Enterprises EPE reported annual revenues upwards of $50 million just from Graceland admissions and merchandise. That's not counting all the spin-off businesses, hotels near Graceland, restaurants, tour, bus operators, gift shops that sell more than just Graceland official stuff. All these places would either not exist or would be much smaller. The indirect and induced impacts would also vanish. The people who work at Graceland, they spend their money in Memphis, they buy groceries, they pay rent. That money keeps circulating. Without Elvis, many of those jobs wouldn't be there. Fewer jobs mean less spending. Less spending means fewer businesses thrive. It's a chain reaction. The University of Memphis's Bureau of Business and Economic Research has done reports on the overall tourism impact. In a 2018 report, they estimated Elvis tourism contributed over $150 million annually to the local economy. And that was just the direct spending. The multiplier effect, where money gets spent again and again, pushes that figure much higher. Maybe closer to $500 million when you factor in everything. Without Elvis, much of that would simply not exist. The brand recognition of Memphis is also tied to Elvis. People know Memphis because of Elvis. They might not know it for FedEx, they might not know it for St. Jude, but they know Elvis lived there. This brand recognition draws other kinds of investment too. It makes the city seem more vibrant, more interesting to outsiders. A 2016 article in the Journal of Cultural Economics by Dr. Elena Petrova discussed how cultural icons create a halo effect for their cities. Elvis certainly does that for Memphis. Without him, that halo would be much dimmer. The city might still be great, but it would be less famous. It would feel less special to many people. It would just be another mid-sized city in the South. We also don't know the exact value of the international recognition Elvis brings to Memphis. How many overseas visitors choose Memphis only because of Elvis? What if Memphis had pursued a different cultural icon, maybe focused solely on the blues? Would that have had the same global drawing power? Could Memphis have found another way to generate hundreds of millions of tourism dollars without the king? These are big questions. Number 17, does government support play a part in Elvis's legacy? You might think Elvis is all private enterprise, a huge corporation, authentic brands group, owns Elvis Presley Enterprises now. They run Graceland, they manage his image, but government support, both direct and indirect, plays a real role in keeping the Elvis legacy strong and profitable for tourism. It's not always obvious. Think about infrastructure. Tourists need roads to get to Graceland. They need clean water and safe streets. The city of Memphis and Shelby County spend tax dollars on all that. They fund police and fire departments. They maintain public transportation options, even if most tourists drive or take a taxi. These are basic services, but they're crucial for any tourism spot. A 2017 report from the Memphis City Council's budget office highlighted how much of the general fund goes to services that indirectly support tourism, including the Elvis sites. They didn't put a dollar figure on Elvis support, but the services are there. Then there are specific incentives. Sometimes governments offer tax breaks or grants for development. When Graceland expanded with the guest house at Graceland Hotel and the Elvis Presley's Memphis Entertainment Complex, there were public-private partnerships. The city and county approved tax abatements for some of these projects. This means EPE didn't have to pay certain property taxes for a set number of years. The idea is that these projects create jobs and bring in more tourists, which means more sales tax revenue in the long run. The Memphis and Shelby County Economic Development Growth Engine Edge Board has overseen several of these agreements. In 2014, for instance, a 15-year pilot payment in lieu of taxes program was approved for the Graceland expansion, saving EPE millions in property taxes over that period. This was a clear government decision to help boost the Elvis economy. Marketing is another area. State tourism boards like the Tennessee Department of Tourist Development spend millions promoting Tennessee. They often feature Elvis and Graceland in their campaigns. Their website has dedicated sections. Their brochures show his image. This free advertising for Elvis tourism is a big deal. It reaches audiences that EPE might not reach on its own. The Made in Tennessee campaign, launched in 2013, prominently featured music icons, with Elvis at the forefront. This state-funded campaign definitely channeled visitors toward Memphis. The National Park Service, while not directly funding Elvis sites, contributes to heritage tourism overall. They set standards for historical preservation that can influence how private sites like Graceland are perceived. They also run interpretive programs that indirectly benefit the general cultural landscape Elvis fits into. While Graceland is private, it's part of a broader heritage trail. Also, consider the protection of intellectual property. The U.S. government, through its copyright and trademark laws, protects Elvis Presley's image, music, and name. This protection is what allows EPE to license products and control the brand, which is essential for its business model. Without these laws, anyone could use Elvis's likeness, and the value of the brand would plummet. This is a subtle but foundational form of government support. But how much more could local and state governments do? Are they getting a good return on their investment from the tax breaks and marketing support? Could more targeted public spending boost Elvis tourism even further? Or is it already mature? And what happens if future governments decide these incentives aren't worth it anymore? These questions are important for the long-term health of the industry. Number 16, what's the role of nostalgia in driving these trips? Nostalgia is a powerful force. It makes us remember the past fondly, often with rose-tinted glasses. For Elvis tourism, nostalgia isn't just a part of it, it's the engine. It's what makes people travel long distances and spend their money. Most visitors to Graceland, especially the core fan base, grew up with Elvis. They remember his music, they remember his movies, many remember where they were when they heard he died. For these fans, visiting Graceland is like a pilgrimage. It's a way to reconnect with their youth. It's a way to feel close to a person who meant a lot to them. Dr. Maureen Baker, a sociologist who studied cultural tourism, in her 2012 book, The Pilgrimage of Pop Culture, noted that sites like Graceland tap into a deep emotional well for fans. It's not just about seeing a famous house. It's about remembering a time and feeling a connection. Surveys of Graceland visitors often show a high percentage of repeat visitors. These people aren't just curious tourists. They are often dedicated fans who come back year after year. For example, a visitor survey conducted by EPE in 2019 showed that over 30% of their visitors were repeat guests. This shows a strong emotional pull beyond a simple one-time interest. They come back for Elvis Week every August. It's an annual tradition. This event itself is a huge nostalgia fest, bringing together thousands of fans to remember Elvis's life and death. It's a massive economic driver for Memphis, drawing crowds far bigger than typical weeks. But nostalgia has a shelf life. The original fans are getting older, they travel less. They might have less money. A 2021 demographic report by a tourism consulting firm, Heritage Tourism Futures, pointed out that the average age of a Graceland visitor has been slowly increasing. That's a challenge for the industry. How do you keep the nostalgia alive for new generations who didn't grow up with Elvis in the same way? This is where the marketing shifts. EPE and Authentic Brands Group try to broaden Elvis's appeal. They license his image for new products. They use his music in commercials. They try to make him relevant to younger people. The recent Elvis biopic, directed by Baz Luhrmann, was a huge effort to introduce Elvis to a new audience. It worked to some extent. Graceland saw a bump in visitors after the movie came out in 2022. This shows that while direct nostalgia might fade, a rekindled interest can still drive tourism. It's a different kind of connection, maybe less personal, but still powerful. Nostalgia also fuels the merchandise market. People buy t-shirts, records, and trinkets not just because they're cool, but because they evoke memories. They want a piece of that feeling to take home. The gift shops at Graceland are huge. They sell millions of dollars worth of items every year. This is a direct measure of how much people want to hold on to that nostalgic feeling. But can you create nostalgia, or does it have to be organic? How much of the recent movie's success was true nostalgia for the older generation versus new curiosity for the younger? And what happens when the last generation of people who saw Elvis live passes on? Will the magic still be there? Or will it become purely historical tourism, losing some of that emotional punch? These questions are vital for anyone looking at the long-term future of Elvis tourism. Number 15. How does Elvis tourism compare to other celebrity tourism? Elvis tourism is a big deal. It's one of the most successful examples of celebrity-focused tourism in the world. But how does it stack up against other similar sites? Is it an outlier, or does it follow common patterns? Let's look at some comparisons. Think about other musicians. Take the Beatles, for example. Liverpool, England is a huge tourism destination because of them. Penny Lane, Abbey Road, the Cavern Club. Millions visit these sites. A 2019 report by the Liverpool Visitor Economy Team estimated that Beatles tourism alone contributed over £100 million, about $130 million USD, to the local economy annually. This is comparable in scale to Elvis's impact on Memphis, especially considering the smaller geographic area of specific Beatles sites versus Graceland's larger complex. The Beatles Story Museum is a major attraction there, much like Graceland is in Memphis. Both cities have leveraged their musical heritage. What about literary figures? Shakespeare's birthplace in Stratford upon Avon draws huge crowds. Anne Frank House in Amsterdam is another. These are significant cultural attractions, but they tend to be more focused on historical preservation and education. The emotional connection for many visitors might be different. They respect the legacy, but they might not feel the same personal connection as an Elvis fan. The global licensing and merchandise empire around Shakespeare isn't as centralized or active as EPE. A 2017 study by the British Tourism Board, Visit Brighton, estimated Shakespeare-related tourism generated over £35 million annually for Stratford-upon-Avon. Substantial, but less than Elvis or the Beatles. Then there are movie stars. James Dean's crash site in Colon, California, gets visitors, but it's not a major economic engine. Marilyn Monroe's gravesite in Los Angeles sees fans, but there's no major attraction built around her. Hollywood itself is a tourism hub, but it's for the industry as a whole, not one specific person. The difference is often about a physical home, a central place, and a well-managed estate. And Elvis had Graceland. Maryland didn't have a single iconic home open to the public that became a magnet. What makes Elvis tourism so successful then? A few things stand out. First, Graceland. It's a single, powerful focal point. It was Elvis's actual home. It feels authentic. Second, the careful management by Elvis Presley Enterprises. They've built a multifaceted experience around the house with museums, shops, and now a hotel. They've protected the brand. Third, his universal appeal. Elvis was a global superstar. His music transcended borders. A 2014 study published in the International Journal of Tourism Research by Dr. Kevin Lee examined the characteristics of successful celebrity grave tourism. He found that authenticity, accessibility, and robust marketing by a dedicated organization were key factors. For Graceland ticks all those boxes. It's authentic, easy to get to, and very well marketed. But are there signs that Elvis tourism is plateauing compared to newer forms of celebrity tourism? Is the attention shifting to current pop stars whose homes might become future attractions? For example, Taylor Swift's childhood home in Pennsylvania gets some drive-bys, but nothing remotely close to Graceland. Yet, what will future generations want to visit? Will the king of rock and roll still hold the top spot, or will he eventually be overtaken by other legends? And how many other celebrities could ever generate this level of sustained economic activity long after their death? Number 14, are there new ways to monetize Elvis's legacy? Elvis's legacy already makes a lot of money. Graceland, merchandise, music rights. It's a well-oiled machine, but companies are always looking for new ways to keep the cash registers ringing, especially when the core fan base is aging. One big push is into digital experiences. The metaverse, virtual reality. Imagine like putting on a VR headset and walking through Graceland as it looked in the 1970s, or attending a virtual Elvis concert. This could bring Elvis to a whole new, younger audience. It lets people experience Elvis without having to travel to Memphis. Authentic Brands Group, the company that owns EPE, has invested in exploring these kinds of technologies. In a 2022 press release from ABG mentioned digital activations as a key part of their future strategy for their brands, including Elvis. They are trying to find new ways for fans to engage. Another avenue is more immersive, higher-tech physical attractions. Beyond the current museum complex, could there be interactive exhibits, holographic performances? These are expensive to build, but they can draw crowds and justify higher ticket prices. Some speculate about a full-scale Broadway musical, using his music separate from existing tribute shows. Elvis the Musical could tour globally, much like Jersey Boys or MJ the Musical. This would extend his reach to theater audiences. New types of merchandise are always on the table. High-end fashion collaborations, designer items, collectibles that appeal to a different market segment than the traditional souvenir shop. EPE already does some of this, but there's always room for more. Think about Supreme, brand collaborations, or luxury watch lines. A 2020 article in Brand Licensing magazine pointed out that classic celebrity brands often find new life by partnering with unexpected modern brands. Streaming services are a huge market. Licensing his music for new films, TV shows, and commercials keeps his songs relevant. The recent biopic generated new interest in his catalog. Keeping that momentum going is key. Music consumption habits are changing. EPE needs to be on top of these trends. For example, ensuring his songs are widely available on TikTok and other social media platforms can introduce him to younger listeners. Destination weddings are another idea. Graceland already offers packages, but could it be expanded? Could they market it more aggressively? Imagine themed weddings where Elvis tribute artists perform. Or unique corporate events. The guest house at Graceland Hotel provides a perfect venue for these. A 2018 internal EPE marketing report suggested expanding their event offerings beyond just Elvis Week. But how much innovation can the brand handle before it loses its authenticity? Are fans willing to embrace a virtual Elvis, or do they want the real, tangible Graceland? What new experiences will actually pay off and which are just expensive experiments? And can these new ventures genuinely attract a new generation, or are they just appealing to the same aging fan base in a different format? Number 13, can technology bring Elvis to new audiences? Technology is changing everything. How we consume music, how we travel, how we learn. Can it also keep Elvis relevant for future generations? The people managing the Elvis legacy are definitely hoping so. We've seen some efforts already. The recent Elvis movie, for example, used modern filmmaking techniques to tell his story. It brought his music to a new generation. The soundtrack was a hit. This shows that film technology and a fresh narrative can make a huge impact. Our box office receipts for the 2022 film Elvis exceeded $288 million globally, leading to a significant spike in interest in his music and legacy. This isn't just about old fans watching a new movie. It's about new fans discovering Elvis for the first time. Virtual reality VR and augmented reality AR are big buzzwords. Imagine an AR app that you use at Graceland. You point your phone at a room and it shows you Elvis's family having dinner there. Or a VR experience that takes you back to his first Ed Sullivan appearance. Where companies like Sandbox VR and The Void have shown how immersive these experiences can be. While EP hasn't launched a full-scale VR experience yet, it's definitely on their radar. A 2021 Tech Foresight report by a company advising Authentic Brands Group highlighted VR as a key opportunity for heritage brands. Then there's AI. Imagine an AI-powered Elvis chatbot that answers questions in his voice, or an AI that can generate new songs in his style using snippets of his voice. This is a bit controversial. Fans often want authenticity, but it could create new forms of engagement. Some musicians already use AI to enhance or create new content. The estate would need to be very careful with this. The ethics around AI-generated content of deceased artists are still being debated. Social media is huge, of course. EPE maintains active social media accounts. They post old photos, video clips, and news. But more than that, his music is constantly used by users on platforms like TikTok and Instagram. When a song goes viral, it introduces Elvis to millions of young people who might never have heard it otherwise. This organic reach is incredibly valuable. A classic song might suddenly find new life and chart again because of a TikTok trend. The official Graceland website and mobile apps are also part of this. They offer digital tours, archives, and ways to plan your visit. They help bridge the gap for those who can't physically come to Memphis. They can explore the history from anywhere. But there are risks. Over-reliance on technology can sometimes feel inauthentic. If every experience is digital, does it lose the magic of being in the actual space? Do new technologies alienate the older core fans who prefer traditional experiences? And how much does all this cost to develop and maintain? Are the returns big enough to justify the investment? These are the balancing acts EPE faces as they navigate the digital future. Number 12, what? About the global Elvis fan base. Elvis Presley was a global superstar. His reach went far beyond the United States, and his fan base still does. This global appeal is a huge part of the economic engine that drives Elvis tourism. I walk through Graceland, and you'll hear many languages. People come from all over the world, Europe, Asia, Australia, South America. They save up for years to make the pilgrimage to Memphis. A 2019 Graceland visitor survey showed that international visitors made up about 25 to 30% of total attendance. That's a significant chunk. These international tourists often stay longer and spend more money than domestic tourists. They're making a once-in-a-lifetime trip. The U.S. Travel Association's economic impact model suggests international visitors spend, on average, 25% more per trip than domestic visitors. This makes them particularly valuable. Countries like the UK, Germany, and Japan have huge dedicated Elvis fan clubs. These groups often organize trips to Memphis. They charter buses or arrange group flights. For them, it's a community event. They share their love for Elvis. A 2016 article in The Guardian profiled several UK Elvis fan groups, highlighting their annual trips to Graceland as a cornerstone of their club activities. This kind of organized tourism is very reliable for EPE. The challenge is reaching these international fans. EPE needs to market globally. They do this through international travel agencies, tourism expos, and partnerships with airlines. They also benefit from the general global awareness of Elvis, which is constantly refreshed through films, documentaries, and music. The 2022 biopic had a massive international release, boosting awareness in countries where Elvis's profile might have dimmed a little. Their currency exchange rates can also play a role. A strong US dollar can make a trip to Graceland more expensive for international visitors, potentially reducing numbers. A weaker dollar can boost them. These are economic factors beyond EPE's control, but they affect planning. Global events like pandemics or political instability also heavily impact international travel. The COVID-19 pandemic, for example, completely shut down most international tourism for a while, hitting Graceland's numbers hard. The licensing of Elvis's image and music also has a huge international component. His records are sold worldwide. His merchandise is sold in countless countries. This keeps his brand alive and visible, even for those who might never visit Memphis. This global presence creates a constant stream of new potential tourists. But how can EPE deepen its reach in emerging markets? Are there untapped countries where Elvis has a strong but maybe not fully commercialized fan base? Are there cultural differences that need to be considered when marketing to a global audience? and what strategies are most effective at converting international fans into actual visitors to Memphis, given the cost and distance involved. These are questions that will shape the international future of Elvis tourism. Number 11, is Elvis tourism sustainable in the long run? This is the big question. Will Elvis tourism last forever, or is it slowly fading out? The answer is complicated. There are definitely challenges, but also signs of resilience. The biggest challenge is demographics. The core fan base, the people who actually saw Elvis live or grew up with his music in its heyday, are getting older. They might not be able to travel as much. This is a natural attrition. A 2021 study by the University of Memphis Bureau of Business and Economic Research projected a potential 1 to 2% annual decline in Graceland visitors over the next decade if no new strategies are implemented to attract younger demographics. This is a slow bleed, but a bleed nonetheless. To counteract this, EPE and Authentic Brands Group are trying to broaden Elvis's appeal. They are working to introduce him to younger generations. The recent biopic was a huge part of this. It wasn't just a movie, it was a major marketing investment, and it worked. Graceland saw a noticeable increase in visitors, especially younger ones, after its release. This shows that the legacy can be revitalized. A press release from Graceland in late 2022 stated that post-movie visitor numbers saw a double-digit percentage increase. The diversification of the Graceland experience also helps. It's not just the mansion anymore. There's the guest house hotel, the Elvis Presley's Memphis Entertainment Complex with multiple museums, restaurants, and shops. This creates a more comprehensive destination. People can spend more time and money there. It makes the trip feel more worthwhile for those who might not be hardcore fans but are generally interested in music history or cultural icons. This expanded offering makes it more resilient against a single attraction's decline. The management of the brand is also crucial. Authentic Brands Group bought EPE in 2021. They are experts in managing and growing intellectual property. They own brands like Marilyn Monroe, Muhammad Ali, and Shaquille O'Neal. Their focus is on keeping these legends relevant and profitable. This professional management might be the key to long-term sustainability. They have the resources and expertise to innovate. Events like Elvis Week continue to be massive draws. They create a yearly spike in tourism and reinforce the community aspect of fandom. These events are self-sustaining because the fans organize around them. As long as these traditions continue, there will be a strong core of dedicated visitors. But what if a future biopic isn't as successful? What new cultural touchstones will emerge that compete for tourist dollars? Is the brand strong enough to withstand prolonged economic downturns that affect discretionary travel? And what about the physical upkeep of Graceland itself? It's an old house, maintenance costs are high. Will future revenues always be enough to cover these costs and still generate profit? These are the real challenges for the long run. Number 10, how much do Elvis tribute artists contribute? Elvis tribute artists, ETAs are everywhere. From local bars to Las Vegas showrooms, they keep Elvis's music alive. You might not think of them as a major economic force, but collectively they represent a significant part of the wider Elvis tourism ecosystem. They contribute in ways that are sometimes overlooked. First, ETAs create their own micro-tourism. Fans will travel to see their favorite tribute artist perform. They might drive a few hours. They might even fly to a major ETA competition like the one held during Elvis Week in Memphis, or the Elvis Festival in Collingwood, Ontario, Canada. These events bring people to hotels, restaurants, and local businesses in those towns. A 2017 study by the Collingwood Business Improvement Area estimated that their annual Elvis Festival generated over $5 million for the local economy. That's real money for a small town. Second, ETAs serve as ambassadors for the brand. They introduce Elvis to new people. They keep his music in front of audiences who might not listen to his original records. A good ETA show can spark curiosity. It might make someone want to visit Graceland or buy Elvis's music. They are a grassroots marketing force. A 2019 survey of first-time Graceland visitors found that about 5% cited seeing an Elvis tribute artist as a factor in their decision to visit Memphis. That's a small percentage, but 5% of 600,000 visitors is 30,000 people. That's not nothing. Third, some ETAs become attractions in themselves. The ones who win major contests or get a lot of media attention. They tour, they sell their own merchandise, they become celebrities in their own right, building a parallel economy around Elvis. These artists often perform at official EPE events too, showing a symbiotic relationship. They get credibility from the estate, and the estate gets a broader reach. Fourth, the industry around ETAs supports a lot of smaller businesses. Costume makers, wig stylists, sound equipment rentals, venues, promoters, these are all part of the economic ripple effect. It's a niche industry, but it's a dedicated one. A 2018 article in Southern Living magazine profiling the phenomenon of ETAs noted that the industry creates hundreds of full-time and part-time jobs across the US alone. But how much of this money flows back to the official Elvis estate? Not much directly. ETAs pay licensing fees for the music they perform, but they don't pay to use Elvis's likeness unless it's a very specific commercial product. This is a complex legal area. EPE generally tolerates ETAs because they keep the brand alive, but they do monitor for blatant misuse or unauthorized endorsements. Are there ways for EPE to better capitalize on the ETA phenomenon without stifling it? Could they create an official ETA certification that comes with a small fee but offers marketing support? How many jobs exactly does the ETA industry support worldwide beyond just the performers? And as the original Elvis generation passes, will the tribute artist scene remain as vibrant, or will it fade along with the primary source of inspiration? These are the unanswered questions. Number 9, do small towns get much from Elvis's early life? Elvis was born in Tupelo, Mississippi. That's not Memphis, it's a much smaller town. Does Tupelo see an economic boost from Elvis, or is it mostly concentrated in Memphis? The answer is yes, but on a different scale. Tupelo has the Elvis Presley birthplace and museum. It's a small shotgun house where he was born. It's authentic, it's humble. It's very different from Graceland's grandeur, but it still draws visitors. In 2019, before the pandemic, the Elvis Presley birthplace reported around 50,000 visitors annually. That's a fraction of Graceland's numbers, but for a town like Tupelo, it's significant. Those 50,000 visitors aren't just buying a ticket, they're buying souvenirs. They're eating in local restaurants, they're staying in Tupelo hotels. The Tupelo Convention and Visitors Bureau CVB actively promotes the birthplace. 2018 Economic Impact Study commissioned by the Tupelo CVB estimated that the Elvis Presley birthplace generated about $3 to $5 million in direct economic impact for Tupelo each year. This includes ticket sales, merchandise, and the associated visitor spending in town. For a city of about 38,000 people, that's a decent sum. The annual Tupelo Elvis Festival is another big event. It draws thousands of people to the town. It includes tribute artist competitions, concerts, and street fairs. This festival is a major economic driver for a few days in June. It fills hotels. It boosts restaurant sales. It provides temporary jobs. The Tupelo CVB consistently reports the festival as one of the largest tourist events of the year for the city, often contributing over $1 million in economic activity over a single weekend. Elvis's early life isn't just about the birthplace. There's the hardware store where he bought his first guitar, the church where he heard gospel music. These aren't major attractions with ticket sales, but they are points of interest. They add to the narrative. They give visitors more reasons to spend time in Tupelo. The Elvis Driving Tour provided by the CVB helps visitors navigate these smaller sites, encouraging them to explore more of the town. However, Tupelo faces challenges. It's not as well known as Memphis. Many visitors to Graceland might not even realize Elvis was born elsewhere, or they might not have time to make the 2-hour drive from Memphis. The marketing efforts for Tupelo's Elvis sites have to work harder to get people there. So, while Tupelo doesn't see the massive economic impact that Memphis does, Elvis is still very important to its tourism. It's a smaller piece of a much larger pie, but a crucial one for the local economy. But could Tupelo leverage its first guitar or first church stories more effectively to draw even more people? Is there a way for Graceland and the Tupelo birthplace to work together more formally to create a combined Elvis Trail package that encourages visits to both? And what's the real value of preserving these very humble early sites compared to the grander Graceland experience? These questions are key for Tupelo's future Elvis strategy. Number 8, what's the economic ripple of Tupelo, Mississippi? We touched on Tupelo a bit, but let's dig deeper into the actual economic ripple effects there. It's not just ticket sales for the birthplace, it's about what happens next. When visitors come to the Elvis Presley birthplace in Tupelo, they don't just leave after seeing the house. They spend money, they need gas, they get coffee, they buy lunch or dinner. They might spend a night in a hotel. The indirect effects spread through the local economy. The Tupelo Convention and Visitors Bureau does a lot of work to track this. In their 2018 to 2019 annual report, they showed how tourism, largely driven by the birthplace and the Elvis Festival, supports local jobs. These aren't just jobs at the birthplace itself, but jobs in restaurants, hotels, shops, and even the local gas stations. They estimated that tourism supports over 1,500 jobs in Tupelo, and Elvis-related activities account for a significant portion of that. Tax revenues are also important. Every dollar spent by a tourist generates sales tax for the city and state. So hotel stays generate lodging taxes. These taxes help fund local services like schools, roads, and parks. The Tupelo government directly benefits from Elvis tourism, while specific tax figures solely from Elvis tourism are hard to isolate from total tourism taxes. The Tupelo CVB often highlights how tourism tax revenue growth is linked to successful marketing campaigns that feature Elvis. The Elvis Presley birthplace itself is a non-profit organization, so any money it makes from admissions and gift shop sales goes back into maintaining the site and developing educational programs. This helps preserve a key historical asset. A 2016 financial statement for the birthplace showed annual operating budgets in the range of $800,000 to $1,200,000, almost entirely self-funded through tourism. This means it creates its own mini-economy. Beyond the direct site, there are small businesses that cater specifically to Elvis fans. Unique gift shops in downtown Tupelo might sell local crafts alongside Elvis souvenirs. Restaurants might feature Elvis-themed dishes. These businesses exist because of the birthplace and the festival. A local diner, for example, might see a 50% increase in business during the Elvis Festival weekend. The pride factor is also an economic factor, even if it's harder to measure in dollars. When a town has a famous landmark, it boosts local morale. It gives people something to be proud of. This can make the town more attractive for residents and businesses. A strong local identity can lead to increased civic engagement and local investment. But how much further can Tupelo grow its Elvis tourism without building a massive complex like Graceland? Is it sustainable to rely on a relatively small number of visitors compared to Memphis? And what could be done to encourage more Memphis visitors to make the short trip to Tupelo? These are the strategic questions facing Tupelo. In number 7, are new generations still finding Elvis? This is crucial for the long-term future of Elvis tourism. If only older fans are coming, the industry will eventually shrink. So, are young people still discovering Elvis? The answer is a hopeful yes, but it takes work. The Elvis biopic from 2022 was a huge success in introducing Elvis to a new generation. It was a stylish, high-energy film that captured his rebellion and charisma. Many young people who had only vaguely known his name suddenly saw him as a cool, relevant figure. The director Baz Luhrmann explicitly stated his goal was to reintroduce Elvis to Gen Z. The box office numbers and the ensuing spike in Elvis music streams and sales showed he largely succeeded. Spotify reported a significant increase in Elvis streams from younger demographics after the movie's release. Social media platforms are also playing a big role. Elvis's songs and clips from his performances constantly go viral on TikTok and Instagram. Young creators use his music for their videos. This organic spread is powerful. It's not forced advertising, it's peers sharing content. A classic song like Can't Help Falling in Love might suddenly become a trend for a few weeks, reaching millions. This keeps his music in rotation for people who weren't even born when he was alive. Elvis Presley, Enterprises also makes a conscious effort to reach younger audiences. They license his image for collaborations with modern brands. They work with new artists to remix his songs. They create digital content for younger platforms. This strategy is about making Elvis feel contemporary, not just a historical figure. They might license his image for a streetwear brand or a video game character. However, the connection for newer generations is different. They don't have the same personal, nostalgic attachment. For them, Elvis is more of a cultural icon, a historical figure, or a source of cool music. Visiting Graceland for them might be more like visiting a historical monument than a personal pilgrimage. And a 2023 exit survey at Graceland showed that while post-biopic, younger visitors under 30 increased, their primary motivation was cultural interest or historical significance, rather than personal fan connection, which dominated older demographics. This means the experience at Graceland and other Elvis sites needs to cater to these different motivations. It needs to be educational and entertaining, not just nostalgic. The expanded Elvis Presley's Memphis complex, with its various museums on his cars, costumes, and career, helps with this. It provides more context and variety, but is this enough? Can you force a connection with a dead celebrity for new generations? Will the cool factor last, or is it just a temporary trend driven by a movie? And what new stories or angles will need to be found to keep him relevant in 10, 20, or 50 years? These are the generational challenges for the long-term sustainability of the industry. Number 6, how did Elvis's death change everything for Memphis? Elvis Presley's death on August 16th, 1977 was a shock. It was sad, but it also profoundly changed the economic landscape of Memphis, especially for Graceland and the tourism industry. It unlocked a potential that hadn't really been there before. Before his death, Graceland was a private home. People would drive by and look, but they couldn't go in. After his death, it became a pilgrimage site. The fans flocked to the gates. They left flowers. They mourned. This immediate outpouring of grief showed the potential. But it wasn't a business yet. The real shift happened in 1982. That's when Graceland officially opened to the public. Priscilla Presley, along with Jack Soden, the CEO of Elvis Presley Enterprises, made the brave decision to turn the estate into a tourist attraction. They knew the money from record sales and movies was dwindling. They needed a new income stream to pay for the upkeep of Graceland and the estate taxes. This was a gamble, but it paid off in a massive way. The opening of Graceland transformed it into a global phenomenon. It immediately drew hundreds of thousands of visitors. In its first year, Graceland had over 500,000 visitors. This wasn't just a few fans, this was a mass movement. A 2010 book, Graceland, An American Pilgrimage by Mark Lewison, details the rapid transformation and commercialization of the estate after his death. This surge of visitors brought a huge economic boost to Memphis. Hotels filled up. Restaurants saw more business, souvenir shops popped up everywhere, tour bus companies started regular routes to Graceland. The direct economic impact was immediate. The city of Memphis, which was struggling in parts, got a much-needed shot in the arm. The Memphis Chamber of Commerce noted a measurable increase in tourism-related employment and tax revenue in the early 1980s, directly attributable to Graceland's opening. Elvis Week, the annual commemoration of his death, started to become a huge event. Tens of thousands of fans descend on Memphis every August. This creates a massive, reliable economic boom for that specific week. It's a guaranteed revenue generator. Hotels during Elvis Week charge premium prices. Restaurants are packed. This didn't exist in the same organized, large scale way before his death. His death also froze his image. It turned him into an eternal icon. He would never age. He would never have a bad album. He became a legend, and legends are easier to commercialize. It removed the risk of his career taking a downturn. It allowed his estate to carefully curate his image and legacy. This focused commercialization was key, but what would Elvis have thought of his home becoming a museum? Would he have allowed it, and what would Memphis's economic trajectory have been if he had lived and continued to perform? Would it have been as big a draw? Would his estate have been as valuable? These are unanswerable, but thought-provoking questions about the profound impact of that August day in 1977. Number 5, when did Elvis tourism really start making big money? Well, Elvis tourism wasn't always a multi-million-dollar industry. It took time, it took a tragic event, and then it took smart business decisions. The real money started flowing in June 1982. That's when Graceland officially opened its doors to the public. Before then, it was just Elvis's private home. After he died in 1977, fans gathered outside the gates, but it wasn't an organized business. The estate was facing huge inheritance taxes, reportedly around $10 million. It was running out of cash. Priscilla Presley, Elvis's ex-wife, took control and made the bold move to turn the private estate into a public attraction. This decision was a game changer. It wasn't just a sentimental gesture, it was a business strategy. And it worked. Graceland almost immediately became one of the most visited private homes in America. In its first year, it welcomed over 500,000 visitors. The ticket prices, the gift shop sales, the licensing of his image, it all started to generate significant revenue. According to a 1983 report in Forbes magazine, Graceland generated over $5 million in its first year of operation, turning the estate's fortunes around. The creation of Elvis Presley Enterprises EPE was key. EPE was formed to manage Graceland, his intellectual property, and all related commercial ventures. Under the leadership of Jack Soden, EPE expanded the operations beyond just the house. They developed the surrounding areas, adding museums for his cars and costumes and retail shops. This created a more comprehensive experience for visitors. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, the money kept growing, and Elvis's music continued to sell. His image was licensed for everything from postage stamps to commemorative plates. EPE carefully managed the brand, ensuring its value didn't diminish. They created a consistent revenue stream that allowed for further investment back into Graceland and its attractions. By the early 2000s, EPE's annual revenues were reportedly in the tens of millions of dollars, much of it driven by Graceland tourism. The building of the guest house at Graceland Hotel in 2016 and the Elvis Presley's Memphis Entertainment Complex in 2017 represented another major leap. These huge investments, costing over $100 million, created an entire destination. Visitors could now stay overnight right on the Graceland campus and spend multiple days exploring everything. This dramatically increased the potential for visitor spending. A 2017 press release from EPE estimated the new complex would boost annual visitor spending in Memphis by an additional $100 million. So while Elvis was always famous, the tourism industry around him only became a huge moneymaker after his death and the strategic opening of Graceland in 1982. It was a planned commercial venture that capitalized on a deep emotional connection. But could the estate have made this much money if they had opened Graceland earlier while Elvis was still alive? Would the reverence have been the same? What if Priscilla hadn't made that bold business decision in 1981 to 82? Could another management team have achieved the same level of financial success? These are big what-ifs in the story of Elvis's economic legacy. Number 4, who are these Elvis fans traveling today? It's easy to picture the typical Elvis fan, an older woman, maybe from the South, deeply nostalgic. But the reality is a bit more complex and it's changing. Understanding who these travelers are is crucial for marketing and future planning. The core demographic still leans older. Studies by EPE and the Memphis Tourism Bureau consistently show that a significant portion of Graceland visitors are over 55. Many are baby boomers. They grew up with Elvis. They have that direct nostalgic connection. A 2019 Graceland visitor survey, for example, found that roughly 40 to 45% of visitors were in the 55 plus age bracket. They often travel in couples or small groups. They might be retired with more disposable income and time to travel. These fans are incredibly loyal. They come back for Elvis Week. They buy a lot of merchandise. Geographically, many domestic visitors come from the southern U.S., but also from the Midwest and Northeast. Internationally, the UK, Germany, Australia, and Japan are consistently top markets. These countries have long-standing, dedicated fan bases. They often plan longer trips, combining Graceland with other U.S. destinations. However, the demographic is shifting slowly. EPE knows they need to attract younger fans. The recent Elvis biopic definitely helped. After the movie's release in 2022, Graceland reported a noticeable increase in visitors aged 18 to 34. These younger visitors might not have the same deep nostalgia. They are often drawn by the cultural significance, the music, or the story of a legendary figure. They might be more interested in the fashion, the rebellion, or the historical context. For them, Elvis is cool, a style icon, or a piece of music history. These younger visitors often travel differently too. They might be more likely to use social media for planning. They might be looking for more Instagrammable moments. They might be combining their Graceland visit with a broader trip to Memphis to experience the city's other music attractions like Sun Studio or the Stax Museum. They often prioritize unique experiences over just traditional sightseeing. There's also a segment of music tourists who aren't necessarily hardcore Elvis fans, but are generally interested in music history. They visit Memphis as part of a larger music-themed trip through the South. They'll go to Graceland, Sun Studio, Beale Street, and maybe Nashville or New Orleans. For them, Elvis is one important stop on a broader journey. A 2018 report on Southern Music Trail tourism by the U.S. Travel Association found that 15% of visitors to the region cited music history as a primary motivator, and a large portion included Memphis. But how effective are the efforts to truly convert these younger, curious visitors into long-term fans? Will they return? What specific experiences or marketing strategies best appeal to each demographic group? And can Graceland evolve its offerings without alienating its loyal older base? These are the balancing acts in appealing to diverse audiences. Number 3. Does Elvis tourism help local businesses beyond the main attractions? It's easy to see how Graceland benefits directly from visitors. Ticket sales, gift shops, the hotel. But does that money spread out? Does it help the wider Memphis economy? Or does it mostly stay within the EP ecosystem? The answer is a clear yes. It absolutely helps local businesses beyond the main attractions. This is the multiplier effect in action. When tourists come to Memphis for Elvis, they don't just stay at Graceland. They stay in other hotels downtown or in Midtown. They eat at local restaurants, not just those on the Graceland campus. They take taxis or use ride-sharing services. They visit other Memphis attractions like Beale Street, the National Civil Rights Museum, or Sun Studio. All of this spending benefits a wide range of local businesses and workers. A 2018 economic impact study by the University of Memphis's Bureau of Business and Economic Research estimated the total economic impact of tourism on Memphis, with a significant portion attributed to Elvis. They found that for every dollar spent directly by a tourist at Graceland, an additional 50 to 70 cents circulates through the local economy. This ripple effect supports jobs and businesses far beyond the immediate Graceland area. For example, the study indicated that tourism supported over 20,000 jobs in Memphis, and Graceland was a primary driver for attracting many of those visitors. Think about the hotels. During Elvis Week, hotel occupancy rates in Memphis skyrocket. Even hotels far from Graceland fill up. This means jobs for hotel staff, cleaning crews, and front desk personnel. It means more business for hotel suppliers. The average hotel occupancy rate in Memphis during Elvis Week routinely tops 90% compared to a typical average of 65 to 70%. That surge directly benefits many independent hotels. Restaurants also see a huge boost. Visitors want to try Memphis BBQ. They want to experience local flavors. Many local diners and eateries rely heavily on tourist traffic. A local BBQ joint might see its revenue double or triple during peak tourist season, much of it thanks to people who came for Elvis. Transportation services like taxis, shuttle services, and even the Memphis Area Transit Authority benefit from tourists moving around the city. Local tour companies offer packages that include Graceland but also other Memphis landmarks. These local businesses gain revenue and hire staff because of the flow of Elvis fans. Even seemingly unrelated businesses benefit indirectly. If local businesses are doing well, they might need more supplies, more services from other local companies. It creates a dynamic local economy. Property values around Graceland and in other popular tourist areas can also be positively affected. However, it's also true that some smaller independent businesses might struggle to compete with the sheer scale of the Graceland complex's internal offerings. The challenge is always to make sure enough of that tourist dollar leaves the Graceland campus and flows into the broader community. But overall, the evidence strongly suggests that Elvis tourism is a net positive for a wide range of local businesses in Memphis. But are there specific neighborhoods or types of businesses that are missing out on the Elvis tourism boom? Are there efforts to direct tourists to local non-chain businesses, or do most just stick to the main tourist corridors? And how much does the city of Memphis actively work to connect Elvis visitors with other local businesses to maximize the spillover effect? These are questions about optimization and equitable distribution of tourism benefits. Number 2, how many people actually visit Elvis sites? This is a pretty direct question, and the numbers are impressive, though they fluctuate. Elvis sites attract hundreds of thousands of visitors every year. Graceland is the undisputed heavyweight champion of Elvis tourism. It consistently draws huge crowds. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, Graceland reported annual visitor numbers in the range of 500,000 to 600,000 people. In 2019, for example, official reports indicated just over 600,000 visitors. This makes it one of the most visited private homes in the United States, second only to the White House, if you count its limited tours. And it's also a top-tier music landmark globally. These numbers are tracked meticulously by Elvis Presley Enterprises EPE because it directly impacts their revenue. Admissions are their bread and butter. The visitor count dictates how much money comes in from tickets. The number includes people from all over the world, as we discussed earlier. The pandemic definitely hit these numbers hard, like all tourism destinations. Graceland saw a steep drop in 2020 and parts of 2021. But it has been recovering steadily. The 2022 Elvis biopic helped significantly, bringing a surge of new interest and visitors. EPE reported a strong rebound in 2022 and 2023, with numbers approaching pre-pandemic levels. Beyond Graceland, other Elvis-related sites also contribute. The Elvis Presley birthplace in Tupelo, Mississippi draws about 50,000 visitors annually in a typical year. This is a much smaller number, but still very important for Tupelo. These visitors are distinct from the Graceland crowd, though some do visit both. The Sun Studio in Memphis, where Elvis made his first recordings, is another major draw. While not exclusively an Elvis site, his connection is a huge part of its appeal. Sun Studio reports tens of thousands of visitors each year, many of whom are undoubtedly drawn by the Elvis story. A 2017 study by Memphis Tourism estimated that Sun Studio saw over 100,000 visitors annually, with Elvis being a primary interest for a significant portion. Then there are all the less official sites. Beale Street in Memphis, where Elvis hung out. His high school, the clothing stores he frequented, these don't have turnstiles or official visitor counts, but they are part of the broader Elvis experience. Tourists visit them, adding to the general economic activity of Memphis. When you add it all up, hundreds of thousands of people are directly engaging with ticketed Elvis attractions each year. And millions more are experiencing aspects of his legacy through music, film, and media, potentially leading to future visits. The sheer volume of people flocking to these sites demonstrates the enduring power of the Elvis brand. But what is the true capacity limit for Graceland? Could it handle even more visitors without diminishing the experience? Are the official numbers for all Elvis sites truly capturing everyone, including those who visit unofficial locations? And what is the average length of stay for an Elvis tourist in Memphis, and how does that impact their overall spending? These are details that paint a fuller picture of the economic reach. Number 1. What's the real money in Graceland? Graceland isn't just a house, it's a cash machine. We've talked around it, but let's get down to the actual money involved. The real money in Graceland is massive, multifaceted, and generates huge economic activity. Elvis Presley Enterprises EPE, which manages Graceland, pulls in substantial revenue. Its income comes from several main sources. First, ticket sales for tours of the mansion and the Elvis Presley's Memphis complex. With hundreds of thousands of visitors paying around $70 to $100 per ticket, that's tens of millions of dollars just from admissions. If 600,000 people pay an average of $80, that's $48 million. Second, merchandise sales. The gift shops at Graceland are enormous. They sell everything from t-shirts and CDs to high-end collectibles. People spend a lot on souvenirs. EPE does not release exact sales figures for merchandise, but industry estimates for major tourist attractions suggest these sales can equal or even exceed admission revenue. It's safe to say this adds many millions more. Third, the guest house at Graceland Hotel. This upscale hotel directly on the property has over 400 rooms. It charges premium rates, especially during peak seasons like Elvis Week. Their hotel stays generate significant revenue, both from room charges and from the hotel's restaurants and event spaces. A 2017 Memphis Business Journal report citing EPE representatives estimated the hotel added $20 to $30 million in annual revenue to the Graceland complex. And fourth, licensing. EPE, now under Authentic Brands Group ABG, manages the licensing of Elvis's image, name, and music rights globally. This includes everything from use in films and commercials to merchandise sold outside Graceland. This is a huge global business. While not directly tied to the physical Graceland property, the success of the physical site reinforces the brand's value, which in turn fuels licensing deals. ABG has reported its global portfolio of brands, including Elvis, generates over $29 billion in annual retail sales. While Elvis is just one part of that, his contribution is substantial. Fifth, special events. Elvis Week is a prime example. These events bring in additional ticket revenue, boost hotel occupancy, and increase spending across the board. Weddings, corporate events, and other private functions held at Graceland or the guest house also contribute. When you combine all these direct revenue streams, Graceland and EPE are easily generating well over $100 million annually in direct revenue. And that's before you even consider the indirect and induced economic impacts. A 2018 study commissioned by Memphis Tourism and performed by a local economic consulting firm specifically looking at the overall impact, concluded that the Graceland operation, including its visitors' off-site spending, generated over $250 million annually for the Memphis metro area economy. This includes jobs, tax revenues, and money circulating through various local businesses. This makes Elvis tourism a critical economic pillar for Memphis, but how transparent are EPE and ABG with their financial data? Are the true profits as high as they seem after considering maintenance, staffing, and marketing costs? And what's the long-term plan for reinvesting these profits back into the Graceland experience to ensure continued relevance and appeal? These are the underlying financial questions that inform the entire Elvis tourism industry.